Hello and a very good morning. You're watching the Breakfast News on Rajya Sabha television this Monday morning with me, Frank Pereira. Let's begin with the headlines. After NSA level talks collapse, Pakistan says DGMO level talks will continue as per schedule, says agreement at UFA was differently interpreted by both sides. Sushma Swaraj to call on Egyptian president and hold talks with Egyptian counterpart. Terror to top the agenda of talks between the two sides. Government to sell 10% stake in Indian Oil Corporation in the biggest disinvestment in current fiscal, sale to raise nearly 9,500 crore rupees. Islamic State destroys 2,000-year-old UNESCO World Heritage Site in Palmyra in Syria. The temple was reportedly blown up on Sunday. And Mount Everest all set to reopen for trekkers 3 months after the devastating earthquake in Nepal. Japanese climber to begin ascent on Tuesday. Well, first up in the bulletin, the collapse of NSA-level talks between India and Pakistan. After calling off the talks, Pakistan has said that the meetings between the Directors General of Military Operations of the two countries and representatives of Pakistan Rangers and the BSF will go ahead as agreed in UFA. Speaking to a private English news channel, Pakistan National Security Advisor Sartaj Aziz, DGMOs can meet anywhere. Aziz, however, put the blame of the collapse of the talks squarely on India, saying that centering the talks around terror was a unilateral decision taken by India. He also said that the decision reached by the prime ministers of both the countries in UFA was interpreted differently by the two sides. The talks were called off hours after India made it clear that a discussion on Kashmir cannot be part of talks and that the Pakistan NSA will not meet separatist Hurriyat leaders.
बात सिर्फ आतंकवाद की होगी जैसा फैसला हुआ है। पाकिस्तान इस बातचीत से पीछे चला गया। मतलब पाकिस्तान आतंकवाद के खिलाफ प्रामाणिक कार्रवाई नहीं करना चाहता। ये पूरी दुनिया को संदेश गया और मुझे इस बात का बहुत मान है कि हमारे प्रधानमंत्री जी, हमारे विदेश मंत्री जी, हमारी सरकार इस पर बहुत ही सख्त रही।
I was very happy with the clear and forthright stand which the government of India took, and that is how I think we need to conduct our relations with Pakistan. A clear and forthright stand, basically after UFA, when Nawaz Sharif went back, the agreement which was arrived at in UFA was something which was not palatable to the hardline military establishment in Pakistan.
Moving on, now External Affairs Minister Sushma Swaraj is in Egypt in the first leg of her two-nation tour. Swaraj arrived in Cairo on Sunday. She will be calling on President Abdul Fattah al-Sisi and will be holding bilateral talks with her Egyptian counterpart. Dominating discussions between the two countries will be reviving civilization ties and trade. According to official sources, both countries are keen on stitching an anti-terror alliance. India had recently announced a strategic partnership with the UAE, China and several Western nations to build a bulwark against terror. Egypt's immediate threat is from terror outfits that support the Islamic State and that have a presence in neighboring Libya. In her first visit to the African country as External Affairs Minister, Swaraj will also deliver an address at the prestigious diplomatic club in Cairo to be hosted by the Egyptian Council for Foreign Affairs. After Egypt, Swaraj will proceed to Germany. Moving on now, the government will sell a 10% stake in the Indian Oil Corporation today to raise nearly 9,500 crore rupees in the biggest disinvestment during the current fiscal. The equity shares will be sold at 24.28 crores through an offer. They have fixed the floor price at 387 rupees a share, which is 2% below the last closing. It is likely to fetch 9,302 crore rupees to the exchequer. At least 20% of the offer size has been reserved for retail investors. They will also get a 5% discount on the cut-off price. The government holds 68.6% interest in IOC. The decision was taken after a ministerial-level consultation between Finance Minister Arun Jaitley and Oil Minister Dharmendra Pradhan. Well, last week was a dramatic one for world markets, including India. This was mainly on account of China devaluing its currency. Chinese markets crashed more than 10% over worries of a weak economy and even weaker exports. Chinese authorities tried to fight the crisis by pumping in money, but when the markets open here today, Indian investors will still remain nervous. Here's a report that explains why.
All of last week, Chinese stock markets continued to jolt the world. On a single day, on Tuesday, the benchmark Shanghai Composite Index lost 6% of its valuation. It was the second biggest loss in recent times. Weak economic growth, falling exports, and a weak currency all combined show the Chinese economy heading for a prolonged slowdown.
Whatever is happening in the Chinese stock market is a reflection of what is likely to happen or is probably already there in the Chinese economy, but still hasn't come out on the forefront, which simply means that the economy in China is weakening. There is no doubt about it.
By the last trading day last week, the cumulative decline for Chinese stock markets was 11%. Top companies, including state-owned Chinese firms, had lost 10%. The Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index traded 20% below its recent high in late April. The Chinese crash impacted the global capital markets, as well as the United States Dow Index fell over 1,000 points, suffering its biggest loss in 4 years. Dow is trading at its lowest level since last October. What was worse, Chinese manufacturing index touched a 77-month low on Friday, triggering fears of yet another round of devaluation of yuan.
This is a time where you have to help the industry to sail through the rough weather. This is a time where you have to provide marketing support to the Indian exporter, so they go aggressively in the market, make their presence felt, so whenever the situation improves, they get the order. So here we would like little more proactive support from the government to help the export sector.
A fortnight ago, the Chinese central bank devalued currency by around 4% to support flagging exports. But its negative impact on Indian exports was somewhat mitigated, since the rupee also touched a new low of rupee 65 against the dollar. But domestic Indian manufacturers still have a lot to lose, especially if a weak Chinese currency leads to cheap manufactured goods being dumped in India. Krishnanand Tripaঠি's report for Rajya Sabha TV.
Joining me for a chat this morning to talk about this is senior journalist Yatish Rajawat. Yatish, thank you so much for joining me on the program. You know, it's very clear that the Chinese economy is in a spot of bother at the moment. But the question really is what kind of an impact is it going to have on the Indian stock exchange and also on the Indian economy?
So let's address the issue of the stock exchange first. As you know that the Chinese stock market has been crashing not in the last 1 week, but for the last 2 months or so. This devaluation was supposed to stem that fall also, but it didn't work for the stock markets. Indian stock markets, and particularly the exporters which are listed on exchanges, on our Indian exchanges, will suffer. Exports will suffer. There's not much that the government can do because this 3.5% devaluation effectively makes Chinese exports far more competitive than Indian, particularly in sectors like chemicals, hand tools, consumer durables. Interesting, and one point I wanted to kind of bring to your notice, Frank, was this announcement came right after the announcement of Foxconn investing in India.
Indeed.
And Foxconn, as you know, was one of the cheerleaders of Chinese manufacturing. Coming to your second question on the Indian economy side, you know, that's a larger issue. Exports do get affected. We've already seen the currency fall. We might see a higher inflow of dollars because finally India is one of the few countries which can absorb that inflow in the market. Stock investors are no longer interested in investing in Chinese stock market. So while we'll have an FII inflow, and we might get, and if this Foxconn investment kind of becomes a trend of sorts, because more and more manufacturers are feeling that the Chinese economy does not, sustain a large manufacturing setup for a very long period. There have been, so if Foxconn becomes a trend and more Chinese companies or Taiwanese companies start thinking of investing in India, over a long term we might benefit.
Indeed, indeed. Very, very interesting observations there, Yatish. But, there have been reports in the media and the Chinese media as well that talk about how the yuan could be further devaluated. Do you see that happening? Do you think that the Chinese are going to go for that?
So here is the concern, Chinese growth is being pegged at around 7% by the Chinese statistician, which is, the number is not believable across the world. China is concerned about the exports. So, and over the last 3 to 4 years, if you see 2010 onwards, actually 5 years, you see the Chinese, every developed country went for these quantity easings and all. US went for almost 3 rounds of quantity easing. This has a huge impact on the Chinese exports. So China actually turned internal. They said, we'll start focusing on the domestic market. And that was one of Premier Xi's promise to the Chinese people. But that strategy has not played well. So we foresee that not 3.5%, but there is a chance that the devaluation can be as much as 10% over the, that's what they need to come back on parity to make the exports competitive.
Indeed. I mean,
Right?
yes, indeed. All right. Yatish, we'll have to leave it at that. Thank you so much for joining us on the program there and putting things into perspective for us. Very interesting observations there, of course, by senior journalist Yatish Rajawat as far as the Chinese economy and what it means for India to is concerned. Moving on now, here's a quick look at the developments slated for the day in our segment, The Day Ahead. India and Nepal will ink a memorandum of understanding for the construction of a 41-kilometer petroleum pipeline. The project from Raxaul in Bihar to Amlekganj in Nepal is estimated to cost around 275 crore rupees and likely to be completed in 3 years' time. Of the 41-kilometer stretch, about 39 kilometers will lie in Nepal. AAP MLA Surinder Singh is likely to join ex-servicemen protesting over the one rank, one pension issue. Surinder Singh, a former NSG commando, will be the second AAP MLA to join the protest. Earlier, Union Minister VK Singh's daughter also joined the ongoing protest at Jantar Mantar in the national capital, demanding an early implementation of the OROP scheme that was promised by the NDA government in its election manifesto. Ukraine is celebrating its Independence Day today. Ukraine, which was a part of the Soviet Union, declared independence on August 24, 1991. Ukrainian President Petro Poroshenko, in his Independence Day Eve statement, however, said that the conflict with Russia is likely to last decades and that the future generations will have to undergo military training. Indian President Pranab Mukherjee greeted the Ukraine government and its people on the occasion. Going on now, in some tragic news coming in this morning. 5 people have been killed in a train accident in Anantapur in Andhra Pradesh. Among those killed is a Congress MLA from Karnataka, Venkatesh Naik. The accident took place in the wee hours of the morning at around 2 a.m. The Bangalore-Nanded Express collided with a lorry. 25 people have been injured in the accident. Well, these are visuals, of course, coming to you from the accident site, and we are joined by Anil Kumar Saxena, Railway PRO, who joins us on the phone line right now. Anil, if you could just update us as far as the situation itself is concerned. What is the situation like right now, and how many people have been killed and injured as a result of this incident?
Actually, this accident took place in the middle of the night at around 2:23 a.m. This was 16594 Bangalore-Nanded Express, which met with an accident between Rangapalli and Penukunda stations in the Anantapur district of Andhra Pradesh. Railway-wise, it falls under Bangalore division of Southwestern Railway.
And what caused this accident, if I could ask?
Actually, when this train was passing through these 2 stations in the Anantapur district, there was a manned level crossing, and a truck, a lorry, which was filled with stones. It broke the closed gate, manned closed gate. It broke, and then it dashed this ill-fated train. which resulted in the derailment of 4 coaches. One is the first AC coach H1, one is third AC coach B1, and 2 sleeper classes coaches S1, S2.
Indeed.
And the information which we have as of now, it has resulted into the death of 5 persons, which include 3 railway passengers, 1 railway staff, and 1 lorry driver. And there is the report of injuries to 3 persons who have been admitted in Penukonda Hospital. Our division railway manager from Bangalore division has already reached the accident site along with the medical train, relief train, and undertaking the relief and rescue operation. Ambulances have reached. We have disconnected the affected 4 coaches, and we have moved the rear portion to and the front portion to the respective stations on both the ends. One portion has been moved to Rangapalli, and the other portion has been moved to Penukonda. Now we also arranged certain we are arranging buses. We'll use those buses to ferry stranded passengers and bring it into the one single portion of the unaffected train.
Indeed.
And then we'll move this train to further nearest biggest station where we can attach more coaches and take it to onward journey. So,
if I understand correctly, you said there are about 3 people who have been injured. Now, what is the condition of those who have been injured? Are they injured seriously, or is it just minor injuries that they are being treated for?
Well, the preliminary information which I see the headquarters does not mention about the level of injuries, but the number is 3, and they have been admitted in the hospital. We'll update you little after once we get more confirmation and more details about that.
Indeed. And it's needless to say that, you know, the train traffic on this particular route would be affected as well for some time till the train itself is cleared and till the situation is under control.
That is true. This is a Bangalore Dharmapuram section, and it's a single line section. Traffic is blocked. And we have already, our South Western Railway and South Central Railway are diverting trains which were otherwise were to ply on this section. And we have also regulated certain trains, which we are notifying separately through our PR departments of these 2 respective zonal railways.
Indeed. All right. Anil Saxena, thank you so much for joining us on the phone line this morning and telling us exactly what the situation is like at this accident site there in Andhra Pradesh. It's time for a short break now, but coming up after that, central team to submit its report to the INB ministry after meeting with students from the FTII. That and much more on the other side. Stay tuned, we'll be right back.
Tradition dating back centuries. A cultural heritage that inspires and warms at once. Magic that awes. Rajya Sabha television brings you events that embrace the wonders of India's classical arts. Conversations with the biggest names in the culture and music. Rajya Sabha television, democracy at work.
India's star shining in global affairs.
The professional army of any country does not have faith, piety and jihad in the name of God.
From regional power to assertive global leader.
Sri Lanka denies that these violations took place.
We want India to be a superpower. We have been doing everything for decades, and we have been giving to India everything best we have.
Experts debate the nation's foreign policy.
We should not have any political preference of ours so far as Nepal is concerned.
Taliban were the creatures of Pakistan. Whatever people may say, they were created by Pakistan.
India's World with Bharat Bhushan on Rajya Sabha television.
Welcome back. You're watching Rajya Sabha television. Well, the 3-member central team that met protesting students of the Film and Television Institute of India in Pune will be submitting its report today. The team, led by Registrar of Newspapers in India, SM Khan, will submit its report to the INB Ministry. Khan said that the talks were held in a positive atmosphere and hoped that the over 70-day protest will end soon. The central team was sent following escalation of tension on the FTII campus last week when 5 students were arrested overnight on charges of rioting. The students have already been protesting over the appointment of Gajendra Chavan as the institute's chairman. Student representatives who were present during the interaction with the central team said that they also put forth grievances against the management and the appointment process at the Premier Institute. Meanwhile, a 3-member delegation from the Trinamool Congress will be visiting the FTII campus today to express solidarity with the protesting students. TMC Chief Mamata Banerjee has already voiced her support for the students.
The students of FTII Pune have been in touch with us now for over a month. They came across to Delhi to meet us, and a few days ago, we've been in touch with them, and a few days ago, Trinamool Congress and Mamata Banerjee decided that we should send a 3-member delegation to Pune. My colleagues, Abhishek Banerjee, who is also our All India Trinamool Youth President and MP, Shatabdi Roy, the famous Bengali actress and MP, and myself, 3 of us are going to be at the FTII in Pune. A, to express solidarity with the students there. B, to listen to them, because from whatever we've seen, we've only seen in the media, to listen to the students, to listen to the teachers. And then, obviously, we are on their side because we believe the authorities should be speaking to them and we should find a solution in place.
Well, the central government has sought a report from Assam over the damages caused by the ongoing floods in the state. Incessant rains since August 17th have caused floods that have affected 18 districts in the state. Over 6 lakh people across over 1,200 villages in the state have been affected by the rising waters. The worst hit districts in the state include Dhubri, Golpara, Chirang, Kokrajhar and Bongaigaon. According to a state government report, 13 people have died in the floods so far. The centre is seeking a detailed report from the state to plan further aid. 6 teams of the National Disaster Response Force are already engaged in rescue work.
दूसरा साल बाढ़ आता है, थोड़ा थोड़ा धीरे धीरे आता है, लेकिन इस बार बाढ़ इतना फास्ट है और इतना अचानक आ गया कि आदमी यहाँ से कोई जाने के लिए शिफ्ट करने के लिए कोई टाइम ही नहीं मिला, कोई सुविधा नहीं मिला। इरिगेशन पूरा का पूरा घर बेघर कर रहा है, तो आदमी का अभी कुछ खाने का पीने का कुछ नहीं है। खेती बाड़ी था पहले, ये खेती अनाज सब पानी का नीचे डूब गया।
ये बाढ़ का जो परिस्थिति है बहुत खतरनाक है। हम लोग इस बाढ़ में हमारा यहाँ का हजारों से हजारों लोग इफेक्ट हुआ है और ये लोग अभी तक जो गवर्नमेंट का जो रिलीफ है, ये रिलीफ अभी तक नहीं मिला है। आज 3-4 दिन हो गया, लेकिन बाढ़ बढ़ते रहा है। लेकिन गवर्नमेंट जो है, डिस्ट्रिक्ट एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन, वो उन लोग अभी तक हम लोग का जो खबर अभी तक नहीं लिया है।
Moving on to some international news now. Nepal is reopening Mount Everest for climbers nearly 3 months after a massive earthquake hit the country in April. The Department of Tourism under Nepal's Ministry of Culture, Tourism and Civil Aviation has given the permission to climb Mount Everest for the first time after the devastating earthquake. A Japanese climber who lost 9 of his fingers to frostbite will be the first to scale the highest peak on August 25th from Nepal's side. Nepal has been desperate to bring back tourism to the Everest since a deadly avalanche triggered by the 7.8 magnitude earthquake killed 18 climbers and severely damaged routes to the mountain peak. More than 9,000 people lost their lives in the earthquake. Well, the Islamic State militants have destroyed the ancient temple of Baal Shamin in Palmyra, Syria. The temple of Baal Shamin dates back to the early 1st century AD. It is dedicated to the Phoenician god of storms and fertilizing rains. According to Syria's head of antiquities, the temple was blown up on Sunday. However, the British-based Syrian Observatory for Human Rights says that the incident took place nearly a month ago. The Islamic State terror group took control of Palmyra in May, sparking fears that it may demolish the UNESCO World Heritage Site. Last week, the group beheaded an 82-year-old archaeologist who worked on excavations and research in Palmyra's famed 2,000-year-old ruins. In some more international news now, the 3 Americans and a Briton who foiled a possible train attack in Paris will be honored with the Légion d'honneur medal today. Francois Hollande will present the country's top honor to them in recognition of their bravery. A French citizen who also tackled the suspected jihadist will also receive the honor at a later date. On Friday, a 25-year-old jihadist named Ayoub El Khazani opened fire on a Paris-bound train but was immediately overpowered by the 3 US citizens and a Briton. The heroes later recalled the incident at a press conference on Sunday, soon after being discharged from hospital.
But I kind of just woke up from the middle of a deep sleep, and my friend Alec was sitting next to me. Anthony was across to my right side, and I turned around and I saw he had what looked to be an AK-47, and he looked like it was jammed or it wasn't working, and he was trying to charge the weapon, and Alec just hit me on the shoulder to say, "Let's go," and ran down, tackled him. We hit the ground. Alec came up and grabbed the gun out of his hand while I put him in a chokehold.
The gunman would have been successful if my friend Spencer had not gotten up. So I just want that lesson to be learned going forward in times of terror like that, to please do something. Don't just stand by and watch.
Well, let's now bring you the other international news in our World Wrap. In the wake of the landmark nuclear deal between Iran and the world powers, Britain reopened its embassy in Tehran. British Foreign Secretary Philip Hammond presided over the ceremony, witnessing the raising of the Union flag over the compound. The embassy had been closed since November 2011, when it was stormed by demonstrators protesting the imposition of international sanctions against Iran. Reciprocating the move, Iran too reopened its embassy in London. Protests against the Lebanese government turned violent on Sunday. Thousands of protesters took to the streets of Beirut as the part of the "You Sting" campaign directed at the government. Water cannons and tear gas were fired at protesters in a bid to curb the demonstration. In retaliation, the protesters threw rocks and sticks at the riot police. With the situation spiraling out of control, the Lebanese army was deployed in force on the streets of Beirut. Amid massive public discontent, Prime Minister Taman Salam has threatened to resign. Representatives from the North and South Korea held a second day of marathon talks on Sunday. The talks stretched for more than 16 hours as both sides tried to find a way to resolve escalating tensions. But even as the talks continued, the South reported that more than 50 submarines from the North appeared to have left their bases and that troop numbers had been doubled on the northern side of the demilitarized zone that separates the estranged neighbors. South Korea also brought 6 fighter jets back from drills in Alaska. UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon is in Nigeria on a 2-day official visit. He is scheduled to hold a meeting with Nigeria's 36 state governors under the theme Pathways to the New Nigeria, the role of subnational governments, later today. He will also lay a wreath to commemorate the 4th anniversary of a deadly bombing at the United Nations House in Abuja. Moving on, some sports news now. Ajinkya Rahane's 4th Test century has put India in the driver's seat on day 4 of the second Test against Sri Lanka. Rahane combined with opener Murali Vijay for a 140-run second wicket partnership. He and Rohit Sharma then added 85 runs for the 4th wicket as India declared their second innings on 325 for 8. The visitors set a mammoth target of 413 for Sri Lanka. Damika Prasad and Tarindu Kaushal took 4 wickets each for the hosts. In their second innings, Sri Lanka lost opener Kaushal Silva and Kumar Sangakkara cheaply. Playing his last innings, Sangakkara was caught on 18, marking an end to an illustrious career. The hosts finished on 72 for 2, requiring another 341 runs for victory. Well, time now for some more sports news in our Sports Beat. Ridhiman Saha and Murali Vijay have been ruled out of the final test of the Sri Lanka series due to hamstring injuries. Wicketkeeper batsman Naman Oja will replace Saha in the squad, while Karun Nair comes in for Vijay. Saha had picked up the injury to his lower right hamstring during the second test. He retired hurt while batting on day 4 of the game, but came back out at the fall of India's 7th wicket. Roger Federer clinched his 7th ATP Cincinnati Masters title after beating Novak Djokovic 7-6, 6-3. After cruising through the first set tie-break, Federer earned the only break of the match in the second game of the second test en route to seal the win in 90 minutes. Federer will now move into second spot in the world rankings, which means the two rivals could meet again in the final at Flushing Meadows. World number 1 Serena Williams defeated third seed Simona Halep 6-3, 7-6 to win the Cincinnati Masters. Halep broke Williams in the opening game of the match, but the Wimbledon champion fought back, winning 5 straight games and took the first set. It was the 69th singles crown of her career and second successive title. The 12th edition of the Vietnam Open Grand Prix will begin at the Nguyen Du Stadium in Ho Chi Minh City of Vietnam. Top Indian women's doubles shuttlers Jwala Gutta and Ashwini Ponnappa have been seeded number 1 for the Grand Prix. The duo will open their campaign against qualifying pair in the first round. In the men's singles, Mumbai's Ajay Jairam is the highest seeded Indian at number 4, while B. Sai Praneeth is at number 5. And Commonwealth Games bronze medalist R.M.V. Gurusai Dutt is at number 13. Meanwhile, P.C. Tulsi and Saili Rane are the only Indians taking part in the women's singles. Manchester City went top of the Premier League table, beating Everton 2-0 on Sunday. Alexander Kolarov's strike in the 60th minute, followed by substitute Samir Nasri, made it 3 wins from 3 games for City. City have now won 9 top league games in succession for the first time since September 1912. That's it on this edition of the Breakfast News. Have a nice day.